The first rule they teach you in dispatch training is that your voice is the only thing standing between a caller and total psychological collapse. Stay even, stay warm, stay in control. You are the last wall of reason before panic swallows someone whole. My name is Marcus Hale. I was 34 years old, 6 years into my career at the Cuyahoga County 911 Center in Cleveland, Ohio. I worked the overnight shift, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. because nobody else wanted it, and because I'd learned to sleep through daylight like it was a skill. My wife Dana used to say I was nocturnal by nature, that I'd been born for the dark hours. She'd leave a plate wrapped in the microwave and a Post-it note on the bathroom mirror. Sometimes the notes were funny. Sometimes they just said, "Come home safe." I never understood why she wrote that. I sat in a chair all night. I wasn't a cop. I wasn't a paramedic. I was a voice in a room full of screens. October 14th was a Tuesday. I remember because Dana had parent-teacher conferences that evening for our son, Eli, and she texted me a photo of his math worksheet at 9:47 p.m., a row of subtraction problems with a smiley face drawn in red marker by his teacher. I saved the photo. I still have it. It's the last normal thing I received before the world changed frequency. I badged in at 9:52 p.m. The center was quiet in the way early week overnights always are. 4 dispatchers on shift, me, Rhonda Tillman, Keith Voss, and a trainee named Jordan whose last name I never learned. Rhonda had 19 years on the job. Keith had 7. Jordan had been with us 3 weeks, still shadowing, still flinching at the domestic violence calls. The supervisor on duty was Carol Phelps, a woman who ran the floor with the calm intensity of a submarine captain. By 10:30, we'd fielded the usual. A fender bender on I-77, a noise complaint in Parma, an elderly man in Lakewood who'd fallen and couldn't reach his phone. His medical alert bracelet triggered the call. I dispatched EMS, confirmed the unit, logged the event. Normal. Everything calibrated, everything in its lane. At 11:16 p.m., I took a call from a woman on Lorraine Avenue. She was whispering. I almost didn't hear her over the hum of the HVAC system above my station. "Someone's in my yard," she said. He's just standing there. He's not moving." I ran the address, residential block, mixed income neighborhood. I asked if she could describe the individual. "He's facing my back door. He's been there for 10 minutes. He's not moving at all." I dispatched a patrol unit, logged it as a suspicious person. The officer arrived 14 minutes later and reported the yard empty. No sign of entry or disturbance. Case closed, code 4. I didn't think about it again until much later. Until I had reason to reconstruct the night minute by minute and realize that woman was probably watching the first one. Standing still, not yet hungry, not yet turned all the way. But I didn't know that then. At 11:16 p.m., it was just another call. Between midnight and 1 a.m., the board was dead. Keith was reading something on his phone beneath a desk. Rhonda was filling out overtime paperwork. Jordan sat beside her with a headset on, listening to recorded calls for training review. Carol was in the glass-walled supervisor's office, door open, coffee in hand. I leaned back in my chair and watched the map. Our CAD system displayed active units as blinking icons across the county grid. Everything was where it should be. The world was running its nighttime program. At 1:07 a.m., I took a call from a man at Metro Health Medical Center. Not a patient. A security guard named Dennis. "We've got a situation in the ER," he said. His voice was clipped, professional. But underneath it, something I recognized, the sound of a person who doesn't want to say what they're seeing. "Can you describe the situation?" "We had a guy come in about an hour ago. Bite wound on his forearm. Dog bite, they figured. He coded 20 minutes ago, they called it. He was dead. I watched them pull the sheet." I waited. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. "He's not dead anymore," Dennis said. I asked him to repeat. He sat up. He pulled the IV out of his arm, and he bit the nurse. "Dr. Khatri is trying to restrain him now, but something's wrong with him. His eyes are wrong. I don't know how to. Can you just send someone? Send everyone." I dispatched 2 patrol units and an additional EMS squad to Metro Health. I flagged it as an assault in progress medical facility. I noted the description Dennis gave. I did everything by protocol, but when I hung up, my hand stayed on the headset for an extra second. Rhonda glanced over at me. You good? Weird one, I said. Metro Health. Guy who was pronounced dead attacked a nurse. She raised an eyebrow. Mispronounced, probably. Wouldn't be the first time. I nodded. That made sense. That was the rational frame. I put it there and let it hold. At 1:23 a.m., I took a second call from Metro Health. Different voice, female, crying. They're biting people. There are 3 of them now. The first one bit the nurse and now the nurse is pleased. There are 3 of them and we've locked the break room but they're hitting the door. I dispatched additional units. 4 patrol cars. Supervisor notification. I flagged it as a mass casualty event, unknown cause. Carol came out of her office. Marcus, what's coming in from Metro? I don't know yet, I said, but it's escalating. By 1:40 a.m., every line on my station was lit, and 3 of them were coming from the same hospital. The calls split open after 2 a.m. like a seam tearing down the center of the city. At 2:02, Rhonda took a call from East 55th Street, a man screaming that his neighbor had broken through his front door and was eating his wife. She dispatched police priority 1. 30 seconds later, Keith took a call from Tremont, a bartender reporting a customer convulsing on the floor who then attacked 2 patrons. Jordan, headset already on from training, accidentally answered a live call, a teenage girl hiding in her closet, saying her mother was scratching at the door and growling. Carol stood behind us now. I could hear her breathing. What is this? She said. Not to us, to the room. I didn't answer. I was already on my next call. A paramedic, one of the units I dispatched to Metro Health, calling from his radio. His voice was shattered. Control, this is Medic 7. My partner is down. Repeat, my partner is one of them. Grabbed her through the ambulance window. I'm driving. I'm not going back in there. That hospital is gone. Do you understand me? It's gone. I asked him to clarify his position. He gave me an intersection. I told him to proceed to the nearest fire station and stay in the vehicle. I don't know if he made it. I never heard from Medic 7 again. At 2:11 a.m., a call came in that I will hear for the rest of my life. The caller ID showed a cell number. Male voice, mid-20s maybe. Calm at first. Yeah, hey, I think I need an ambulance. I got bit. I was walking home from my buddy's place and this lady came out from between 2 cars and just bit me on the shoulder. It's bleeding pretty bad. I told him I was dispatching EMS. I asked for his location. He gave me a street corner in Ohio City. Is the individual who bit you still present? No, she walked off. She was barefoot. Something was wrong with her face, like she'd been dead for a while, but she was walking around anyway. He laughed, a single thin sound. That's crazy, right? I sound crazy. Sir, EMS is en route. Can you apply pressure to the wound? Yeah, I got my jacket on it. A pause. Hey, am I going to be okay? I told him to stay on the line. I told him help was coming. What I didn't tell him was that I had no available EMS units left in his sector. Every ambulance was either committed or not responding. He stayed on the line. He talked to me for 11 minutes. He told me his name was Andre. He told me he worked at a print shop on Detroit Avenue. He told me his mom lived in Shaker Heights and he was supposed to have dinner with her on Thursday. At minute 9, his voice changed. I don't feel right, he said. My hands are tingling. My shoulder's going numb. At minute 11, he stopped talking mid-sentence. I heard the phone clatter against pavement, then breathing thick, wet, arrhythmic, then nothing I could identify as Andre. I disconnected the call. My hand was shaking. I logged it, coded it, and took the next one. By 2:30 a.m., the Cuyahoga County 911 Center was receiving more calls per minute than we'd ever handled during any emergency in our operational history, more than the 2003 blackout, more than the derecho in 2012. The CAD system was stacking incidents faster than we could assign units. Half the units we dispatched weren't acknowledging. Some had gone silent entirely. Carol made the call to activate overflow protocols. She pulled 2 off-duty dispatchers by phone. One, a woman named Francine, answered and said she'd come in. The other didn't pick up. Keith's hands moved across his keyboard with mechanical precision, but I could see his jaw clenched so tight the muscles in his neck were cording. Rhonda was the steadiest of us. She'd worked through the Tamir Rice aftermath, the downtown shooter in 2019. Her voice never broke, but I watched her mute her headset between calls to exhale, and each exhale was shorter than the last. Jordan was drowning. The trainee had taken 4 calls in 20 minutes, each worse than the last. A father barricaded in a bathroom with his 2 children. A gas station attendant watching 3 figures press against the glass. A woman who said her husband had come home from the night shift. But it's not him. It's not him anymore. Jordan's protocol was impeccable, but his hands were visibly shaking, and his face had gone the color of paper. "Jordan," Carol said, touching his shoulder, "you can step off." "No." He adjusted his headset. "I'm fine." He wasn't fine. None of us were. But what would stepping off mean? The calls didn't stop because you stopped answering. The phones were ringing for human beings who needed to believe that someone was going to come, that the system still existed. At 2:38, I dispatched what I believe was the last functioning police unit in District 3 to a home invasion call on Denison Avenue. The officer, badge 4417, acknowledged. At 2:51, I heard his radio key open. There was no voice, just the sound of breaking glass and something I will not describe. Then the carrier dropped. I marked the unit as out of service. I did not mark the officer as anything. I didn't know what to mark him as. At 2:44, Carol's desk phone rang. The direct line, not a 911 call. She answered it in her office. Through the glass, I watched her face change. Whatever architecture held her professional composure together, I watched it shift. Not collapse, not yet, but shift, like a building settling after an earthquake. She came out 30 seconds later. "That was the watch commander at the 2nd District Station," she said. "They've lost the building." Keith stopped typing. "Lost it how?" "The lobby was overrun 20 minutes ago. Officers are evacuating to their vehicles. He's requesting all available units rally at the Justice Center downtown." She paused. "He also said there's no point dispatching EMS anywhere east of the river. His word was gone. Gone. An entire half of the city, described in a single word by a police watch commander who should never have used it." I put my headset back on and answered the next call. The nature of the calls changed after 3 a.m., not gradually, like a door closing. Before 3, the callers were afraid. They were panicked, pleading, sometimes hysterical. But they were people calling because they believed in rescue. They said, "Please send someone." They said, "How long until they get here?" They said, "My address is," and gave it clearly because they trusted the system would respond. After 3, the callers stopped asking for rescue. They called to be heard. At 3:04, a woman called from a 2nd-floor apartment somewhere in Slavic Village. She was calm, eerily calm. "They're in the building," she said. "They're on the 1st floor. I can hear them in the hallway. I just wanted someone to know my name. It's Patricia Sims. I'm 47 years old. I have a daughter in Columbus named Reese. Can you write that down?" I wrote it down. I told her to barricade. I told her police were responding. I lied. There were no police responding to Slavic Village. There were no police responding to most of the city. "It's okay, honey," she said. "I know. I just wanted someone to hear me say my name." The line went dead 4 minutes later. Not because she hung up. At 3:09, a man called from inside a car. Engine running. He was crying. "I hit one of them with my car, and it got back up. I'm driving, and I don't know where to go. Where do I go? Is there anywhere safe?" I didn't have an answer. I had no information about safe zones, shelters, or evacuation points. No one had issued those directives. I told him to drive toward the interstate and keep moving. I don't know if that was right. I don't know if anywhere was right. At 3:14, Rhonda pulled off her headset. "Marcus." I looked over. She was staring at her screen. "I've got 47 calls in queue, 47 people on hold, waiting, and I have 0 units to send. 0. I knew my queue showed 53. "What do we do?" she said. It was the first time in 6 years I'd heard Rhonda Tillman ask that question without already knowing the answer. "We stay on," I said. "We keep answering." "Why?" I didn't have a good answer. The honest one was, because if we stop, then no one is listening. And maybe that's all we can give them now. Not rescue, not police or EMS or fire, just a human voice that acknowledges they exist before they stop existing. Rhonda put her headset back on. She took the next call. Her voice was steady and warm, the way training taught us, and it was the bravest thing I'd ever witnessed. At 3:22 a.m., Jordan stood up from his station. His face was wet, not from crying, from sweat. His eyes were wide and fixed on something none of us could see, some interior wall that had finally given way. "They're eating people," he said. His voice was flat, informational. "I just listened to someone get eaten alive. She was 63 years old and she was hiding under her dining room table, and they pulled her out and I heard it. I heard all of it." Carol moved toward him. "Jordan, sit down." "No." He pulled his headset off and set it on the desk with the careful precision of someone placing a grenade. "No one is coming. We both know that. I'm telling people help is on the way and no one is on the way. I'm lying to dying people. We are providing what? What are we providing? A countdown? A lullaby?" His voice cracked on the last word. He was 22 years old, 3 weeks on the job. "I'm going home. I have a little brother. He's 12. My mom works nights at the clinic. I'm going home." Carol didn't stop him. She looked at him for a long moment, and something passed between them that I recognized the acknowledgement that protocol had expired, that the framework we operated inside had dissolved, and what remained was individual choice in a void. "Take the east stairwell," she said. "The parking garage should be clear. Drive fast and don't stop." Jordan left. I heard his footsteps on the tile, quick and young, and then the stairwell door closing. I never saw him again. I hope he made it. I hope his little brother was still his little brother when he got home. That left 4 of us, me, Rhonda, Keith, and Carol. The phones kept ringing, 50, 60, 70 calls in queue, each one a person, each one a voice waiting to be heard by a system that no longer existed behind ours. At 3:31, Keith said something quietly, almost to himself. "My wife's not answering her phone." I looked at him. He was still working, still typing, still dispatching to units that would never acknowledge. But his face had gone somewhere else. "She's in Strongsville," he said. "She should be asleep. She always answers." "Landline?" Rhonda asked. "Tried it. Nothing." He kept working. His hands kept moving. But I could see the calculation happening behind his eyes, the math of duty against the math of love. Each second on the headset, a second not driving west toward Strongsville, toward a woman who always answered and now didn't. I couldn't tell him to stay. I couldn't tell him to go. I could only watch him make the decision in real time and know that whatever he chose would cost him something he couldn't get back. At 3:33 a.m., my station phone rang. Not through the 911 queue, the direct administrative line that bypassed the public system. I answered on reflex. "Cuyahoga 911, dispatcher Hale." "Marcus." The voice was Dana's, my wife, calling on a line she shouldn't have had the number for, except I'd given it to her years ago, told her to use it only in an absolute emergency, only if the regular lines were jammed. "Dana, are you okay? Is Eli—" "Something's outside." Her voice was controlled. She was a middle school teacher. She could manage a room of 30 13-year-olds, but I knew the gradient of her calm. This was forced calm, manufactured. "Someone's on the porch. They've been there for about 10 minutes. They're pushing against the front door." "Did you lock the deadbolt?" "Yes, both locks, and the chain." "Marcus, it sounds wrong. The way they're pushing. It's not knocking. It's rhythmic, like they don't get tired." My entire body went cold, not metaphorically. I felt my blood temperature drop. My hands went numb on the keyboard. "Where's Eli?" "In our bed, asleep. He doesn't know." "Dana, listen to me. Go to the bedroom, lock that door too. Push the dresser against it. Take Eli into the master bathroom and lock that door. Stay away from windows." "Marcus, should I call 911? The question hit me like a fist. My wife asking me, a 911 dispatcher, whether she should call 911. And I knew. I knew with absolute clarity that if she called, her call would enter a queue with 70 others. And no one would come. no one would ever come. No, I said. Don't call 911. I'm telling you what to do right now. Listen to my voice. Okay. Bedroom, dresser, bathroom. Do it now. Stay on this line. I heard her moving. The phone rustled against fabric. I heard the bedroom door close, the click of its lock, a privacy lock, not a deadbolt, a lock meant to keep a curious 5-year-old out, not what was on my porch. Marcus, it's inside. 4 words, the worst 4 words I've ever heard, spoken in my wife's voice with a steadiness that told me she was holding herself together for our son, who was still asleep 3 feet from her. The front door? I heard it break. The wood had cracked. It's in the house. I stood up. My headset pulled taut against its cord. Rhonda looked at me. Carol looked at me. I was standing at my station and I couldn't breathe. Dana, the dresser. Now. Push it. I'm pushing. It's Marcus. I can hear it in the hallway. It's moving fast. I have never felt helplessness like that moment. 6 years of training in being the calm voice for others, and now the call was for me. And I was 22 miles away in a building I couldn't leave, and the thing in my hallway was between me and everyone I loved. The next 90 seconds existed outside time. I heard Dana push the dresser. I heard its wooden legs scrape against the bedroom floor. That floor. Our floor. The floor I'd installed myself 3 summers ago because we couldn't afford a contractor. I heard Eli wake up, his small voice confused and sleep thick. Mom? Baby, come here. Come in the bathroom with me. We're going to play a game. She was lying to him, the same way I'd been lying to callers all night. The same way the system lies to everyone help is on the way. Stay calm. You're going to be okay. But her lie was made of love, and mine had been made of protocol. And in that distinction, I understood something about the night that I couldn't ununderstand. I heard the bedroom door shudder, a single impact, then another. Then a sound I knew from the calls, that wet, persistent pressure of a body that doesn't process pain, throwing itself against a barrier with metronomic regularity. Marcus, it's at the bedroom door. The bathroom. Get in the bathroom. Lock it. I'm in. We're in. Eli's with me. Okay. Stay there. I'm coming. I said it without deciding. The words came out of a part of me that was older than training, older than professionalism, older than duty. I'm coming. The most human sentence I've ever spoken and the most impossible promise I've ever made. Carol was beside me. Marcus, that's my wife. That's my family. I know. Her hand on my arm, not restraining, grounding. Your car is in the garage, level 2. If you leave now, the calls, I'll take your station. She looked at me with 23 years of supervision in her eyes. Go. I pulled my headset off. The sound of the room changed the cue alerts, the ringing, the ambient hum of a system, hemorrhaging, all of it muted as the headset left my ears. I still had my phone pressed to my ear, the admin line, Dana's breathing. Marcus, Rhonda said. My family. She nodded once. Then she reached over and pulled my station's cue into hers. Doubled her load, said nothing. Just did it. I grabbed my coat and my keys and I ran. But before I reached the stairwell door, I stopped. I turned back. The dispatch floor was lit blue-white by screens showing a city being consumed. Carol was putting on my headset. Keith was still at his station, still working, still not driving to Strongsville. Rhonda had 2 headsets now, one on each ear. Keith, I said. Go. He looked at me. Go home. Go to her. He stood up. He didn't say thank you. He just went. And Carol took his station too. One woman manning 3 positions in a room designed for 6, answering calls for a city that was already largely dead. That was the last time I saw the inside of the Cuyahoga County 911 Center. The parking garage was not clear. I came through the stairwell door on level 2 and immediately heard it footsteps that weren't footsteps. That shuffling, arrhythmic gait I'd heard described 50 times in the past 3 hours by callers who'd never heard it before and couldn't find words for it. A dragging sound, like someone moving with a broken ankle and not caring. My car was a silver Honda Accord, 3rd row, east side, the thing the person the infected was between me and it. One figure standing near the concrete pillar by the ramp. A woman in hospital scrubs. Her left arm hung at an angle that wasn't anatomically possible unless the shoulder had been dislocated or partially separated. Her head moved in slow lateral sweeps, like a radar dish. I didn't make a sound. I crouched behind the stairwell door and watched her through the narrow window. She hadn't seen me, hadn't heard me. My phone was still against my ear. Dana's breathing, shallow and controlled. "Marcus, it broke through the bedroom door," whispered, almost inaudible. "Are you in the bathroom? Is the door locked?" "Yes. Eli's in the tub." I had to move. The thing by the pillar was 40 feet from my car. If I was fast, if I committed fully and sprinted, I could be inside with the doors locked before she reached me. Maybe. I'd never run from anything in my life. I'd never had to choose between noise and silence, between speed and stealth, between the rational fear of one body and the certain loss of two others. My life had been a chair and a headset, and the problems had belonged to other people. I pushed the door open. It made a sound, a metallic click that echoed off the concrete. The woman's head snapped toward me. I ran. She moved faster than I expected. Not sprinting, nothing athletic or coordinated, but fast in the way water moves downhill, inevitable and directionless and relentless. I heard her bare feet slapping concrete behind me as I reached the accord, as I fumbled the key fob, as the locks chirped and I threw myself inside and pulled the door shut. She hit the driver's side window 3 seconds later, palms flat against the glass. Her face pressed close and I saw her eyes, not empty, not dead, but wrong in a way I can't articulate. Like something was using the hardware without understanding the software. Recognition without comprehension. I started the engine. I reversed out hard enough to bump the pillar behind me. She slid off the window and went down. I shifted to drive and took the ramp down, tires squealing on polished concrete, and I pulled onto Ontario Street doing 40 in a 25 zone. "I'm in the car," I told Dana. "I'm coming. 20 minutes. Hurry!" The city was not a city anymore. It was a geography populated by figures that used to be residents. I took the I-90 West ramp at 3:38 a.m. The highway should have been empty at that hour, a few semis, maybe a late commuter or two. Instead, it was a scattered obstacle course. Cars stopped in lanes with doors open, a pickup truck on its side near the West 44th exit. No emergency vehicles responding because there were no emergency vehicles left. Headlights pointing in wrong directions. A school bus. Why was there a school bus at 3:38 a.m.? Sitting motionless in the center lane with its stop sign extended. I drove around them. I drove fast. My phone was wedged between my ear and shoulder, both hands on the wheel. Dana was no longer speaking. I could hear her breathing. I could hear Eli, very faintly, saying something I couldn't make out. And I could hear the thing on the other side of the bathroom door, patient, mechanical, working against the wood with a persistence that no living person would maintain. I exited at Crocker Road. The surface streets were worse. At the intersection of Crocker and Center Ridge, a fire was burning in a CVS parking lot, not the building but a car, engulfed, throwing orange light across the empty lot. By its light, I saw 3 figures standing near the pharmacy entrance. Not moving, just standing, oriented toward the fire like moths. I didn't slow down. The neighborhoods got quieter as I moved south toward our subdivision. Fewer figures, fewer fires. The houses were dark, not the comfortable dark of sleeping families, but the dark of systems shut off, of power grids unstaffed, of no one coming to flip the breaker. Some houses still had porch lights on, burning on timers that didn't know the world had ended. At 3:44 a.m., I turned onto our street, Maple Ridge Drive, a cul-de-sac of 12 homes built in 2004, all roughly identical split levels with 2-car garages and small backyards. I knew every family, the Nguyens at number 4, the Petersons at number 8, the house at the end with the basketball hoop where Eli played with the Miller kids on Saturdays. My headlights swept the street as I turned in. 3 of the houses had their front doors open, not broken open, as if the occupants had walked out and not come back, or as if something had walked in and the door was no longer anyone's to close. Our house number 7 had a broken front door. I could see it from the street. The frame was splintered, the door itself hanging inward at an angle. The porch light was still on. The jack-o'-lantern Eli and I had carved last weekend sat on the front step, grinning. "Dana, I'm outside." No response. "Dana!" Her breathing. Still there, shallow. "I'm coming in." I didn't have a weapon. I had never owned a gun. I was a 911 dispatcher. I sent people with guns. Standing in my own driveway, staring at my own broken front door, I understood for the first time the obscenity of that division. The people who call and the people who come, except no one was coming. I was both now. I opened the trunk, a tire iron, 30 inches of forged steel with a lug wrench on one end. I'd changed a flat tire with it once, on the side of I-71, cursing because I'd ruined my work pants. Now I held it in my right hand and walked toward my own home like it was enemy territory. The hallway inside was dark. The overhead fixture was off, the switch must have been hit during whatever happened. I could see the damage by the porch light's glow. The door frame cracked at the deadbolt, the chain ripped clean from its mounting screws. Muddy prints on the tile, not shoe prints, bare feet. I moved through the hallway toward the bedroom. Our bedroom was at the end, past the kitchen, past Eli's room. Every door was open except one. The bedroom door was destroyed, not just forced open, partially dismembered. The upper hinge had pulled free from the frame, and the door hung diagonally, a gap at the top wide enough to see through. Behind it, the dresser. Dana had pushed it as I'd told her. It was displaced 2 feet from its original position, pushed back by repeated impact. The bedroom was empty, the bathroom door was closed, and the thing was there, standing in the bedroom, facing the bathroom door. A man, my neighbor, Paul Peterson from number 8, still wearing his pajama bottoms and the Cleveland Browns t-shirt I'd seen him in 100 times at block parties. One of his hands was against the bathroom door. Not pounding, pressing, testing. He heard me, or sensed me. He turned. I want to say I hesitated. I want to say there was a moral reckoning, a moment of recognition, a flicker of the man I'd shared beers with on summer evenings. There wasn't. There was only the calculation of distance and the weight of the tire iron and the sound of my wife breathing on the other side of that door. I swung. Paul went down. I swung again. He stayed down. I will not describe what that felt like. Not the physics. The other thing. The after thing that lives in your hands when you've done something your body was never meant to do to another body that once had a name. "Dana, it's me. It's Marcus. Open the door." 3 seconds of silence, then the lock turned. The door opened and my wife's face appeared, white, dry-eyed, focused, and behind her, in the bathtub, Eli, wrapped in a towel, asleep or pretending to be. "We need to go," I said. "I know." She didn't look at Paul. She stepped over what remained of the bedroom door frame and went straight to Eli. Picked him up. He was too old to be carried, 5 years old and tall for his age, but she lifted him like he weighed nothing, and his arms went around her neck on instinct. I led them through the hallway, past the kitchen, past the broken front door, out to the car still running in the driveway. I put them in the back seat. I closed the door. And then I stood in my own front yard and looked at my street. The open doors, the silent houses, the absent lives, and I understood that I would never come back here. That this address was now a coordinate on a map of a place that no longer existed. We drove west, not toward anything specific, just away. Away from the city, away from the density, away from the thousands of figures whose calls I'd answered and failed. Every mile of distance was a mile of silence, and in that silence I began to hear the echoes of every voice I'd logged that night. Eli slept in his car seat. Dana sat beside him in the back, one hand on his chest, watching out the window. She hadn't asked me what was happening. She hadn't asked me to explain. She was a teacher. She assessed situations fast and acted on incomplete information. Right now, the information was sufficient. The world had changed. We were leaving. Her husband was driving. At 3:47 a.m., I looked at my phone. I'd set it in the cup holder after losing the connection with Dana. The screen was dark. No calls, no texts, no notifications. And that's when I realized the silence wasn't just on my phone, it was everywhere. The 911 system, the dispatch center, the queue that had been at 70 calls, 80 calls, climbing it had stopped. Not because the system crashed, not because the phones went dead, because there was no one left to call. At 3:47 a.m., the call stopped. The people who could call had already called. The people who hadn't called were beyond calling. The window between the beginning of the event and the end of organized human communication in Cuyahoga County, Ohio, was approximately 4 hours and 30 minutes. I thought about Carol, sitting in that room with 3 headsets, answering into silence. I thought about Rhonda, loyal to the last ring. I thought about the callers still in queue at 3:30, 3:35, 3:40, holding, waiting, trusting that someone would pick up, that the system would engage, that the blue wall of protocol and procedure would manifest between them and the dark, holding until they couldn't hold anymore. I thought about Andre, the print shop on Detroit Avenue, dinner with his mom on Thursday. "Where are we going?" Dana asked from the back seat. Her voice was quiet, practical. "South," I said. "Away from density. Somewhere rural." "Do we have a plan?" "No." "Okay." That was Dana. "Okay." Not panic, not recrimination, not "why didn't you prepare? Why don't you have a bag? Why don't you have a gun?" Just okay. And then the quiet work of figuring out what came next inside the constraints of what was real. I drove. The highway thinned. The exits stopped showing illuminated signs. The night was vast and empty, and I drove into it with my family in the back seat and 70 unanswered calls living permanently in my chest. We stopped at a gas station south of Medina just before 5 a.m. The power was still on, the pumps were illuminated. The open sign buzzed in red neon, but the building was empty. The door was locked, no attendant, no customers. A half-eaten sandwich sat on the counter inside, visible through the window. I pumped gas. The card reader worked. The receipt printed. The mundane mechanical persistence of infrastructure after the collapse of everything it was built to serve. I stood there watching the gallons tick upward and felt the absurdity of paying $3.47 per gallon for gasoline at the end of the world. Dana got out to stretch. Eli was still asleep. "How long do we have?" she asked. Meaning, how long before this, the pumps, the lights, the electricity stops working? "I don't know. Days maybe. Depends on automation." She nodded. She was looking south down the empty 2-lane road that disappeared into dark farmland. "I have a cousin in Ashland County. Rural property, fenced." "How far?" 60 miles. I didn't know if 60 miles was survivable. I didn't know what was between us and there. But it was a destination, and a destination was more than we'd had 5 minutes ago. "Call her," I said. Dana tried. No answer. But the phone rang, which meant the towers were still up, which meant the infrastructure was holding at least in its automated layers. We chose to drive toward the ringing phone, toward the possibility that someone would pick up, that the silence wouldn't extend forever in every direction. I was about to get back in the car when I heard another engine. Headlights appeared from the north, fast, erratic. A minivan. It pulled into the station hard, braking unevenly, and a man got out of the driver's side. 40s, glasses, button-down shirt untucked over boxers. He'd left home in whatever he was wearing. "Is the pump working?" he asked. His voice was high and tight. "Yeah." "Thank God. Thank God." He started pumping. His hands were trembling so badly he could barely hold the nozzle. A woman sat in the passenger seat. 2 children in the back, young, maybe 7 and 9. The woman was on her phone, scrolling, looking for information that didn't exist yet, because the systems that generated information were staffed by people who were no longer at their desks. "Where are you coming from?" I asked. "North Olmsted. Our neighbor, he..." The man stopped, swallowed, started again. "We just drove. Do you know what's happening? Is there a broadcast? Emergency alert?" "No," I said. "I work 911 dispatch tonight. There's no coordinated response. The system is down." He stared at me. The information landed on him like a physical weight. "What do we do?" "Go south. Get rural. Get distance from population. He nodded. Reflex agreement from a man who'd already lost the ability to make decisions and was looking for anyone who sounded certain. I wasn't certain. I was a dispatcher. I was trained to sound authoritative while knowing nothing. It was the only skill I had left, and it was the one people needed most. Follow us, I said. I don't know why. The words came from the same place that had told Donna I'm coming. Instinct or duty, or the inability to let another voice go unanswered. We're heading to Ashland County, 60 miles. Stay close. His name was Greg Fullerton. His wife was Amy. Their children were Thomas and Lily. I learned these names at a gas station at the end of the world because I couldn't stop being a dispatcher. I couldn't stop being the voice that said, I hear you, here is what to do next. Even when I didn't know. Dawn came at 6:48 a.m. I know the exact time because I was watching for it, the way you watch for a rescue signal, not with hope exactly, but with the desperate need for a marker, for evidence that the world's fundamental mechanics hadn't stopped, that the planet still turned, that light still followed dark. It did. The sky went gray, then pink, then pale gold over flat Ohio farmland. We were on State Route 42, two vehicles moving south at a steady 55. The road was empty, no other cars, no figures in the fields, no evidence of the night except its absence, the missing traffic, the missing normalcy, the missing world. Eli woke up somewhere near Loudonville. He said, "Where are we?" And Dana said, "We're going on a trip." And he said, "Okay," with the same calm acceptance she'd shown hours earlier. Genetics or example. The Hale family. We say okay and we keep moving. I wanted to cry. I didn't. I was driving. The Fullerton minivan stayed close behind us. I could see Greg's face in my rearview mirror locked forward, both hands on the wheel, following my taillights with the absolute faith of a man who'd chosen to trust a stranger, because the alternative was deciding for himself in a landscape without landmarks. I thought about the weight of that. Being followed, being trusted. I'd been a voice in a headset, anonymous, interchangeable, institutional. Now I was a specific person in a specific car making specific choices that other specific people were binding their lives to. The distance between dispatching and leading was thinner than I'd ever understood. At 7:15, Dana's phone rang. Her cousin, Rachel. She answered, spoke quickly, gave our location. Rachel's voice, tinny through the speaker, said the words I needed to hear more than any I'd heard all night. The gate's open. Come straight up the drive. We're here. 40 minutes later, I turned onto a gravel road marked by a single green mailbox, a farmhouse at the end, fenced pasture on three sides, a tree line to the north. Rachel standing on the porch with a rifle in her hands and her husband beside her with another. I parked. I turned off the engine. The silence that followed was different from the silence at 3:47. That silence had been an ending. This one was a pause, a held breath before whatever came next. Eli said, "Is this where the trip is?" "Yeah, buddy," I said. "This is where the trip is." I sat in the car for a long time after Dana took him inside. I sat with my hands on the steering wheel and I listened to nothing. No ringing, no cue, no voices asking me to send help I couldn't send. Just the engine ticking as it cooled, and birds in the tree line, and the obscene normalcy of a rural morning that didn't know yet. Greg Fullerton pulled in behind me, got out, stood beside my window. "Thank you," he said. I nodded. I didn't deserve it. I hadn't saved anyone. I'd just driven. I just said follow me because I couldn't stop dispatching, couldn't stop being the voice that gives direction even when it has none to give. Every person I'd left in that queue, every Patricia Sims and Andre, an unnamed bartender and terrified teenager, they were still in my ears. They would always be in my ears. That's the thing no one tells you about being a dispatcher. The calls don't stop when you take off the headset. They live in you. They become the frequency your brain tunes to in silence. And now I carry a city's worth of last words in my chest, each one a voice that trusted me, each one a person I told to hold on. And the line went dead, and I couldn't send anyone, and I logged the code and I took the next call until there were no more calls to take. It's been 6 days since the night the call stopped at 3:47 a.m. We're still at Rachel's farm. There are 11 of us now. The Fullertons, a couple who arrived on foot 2 days ago, a teenage boy who showed up alone and hasn't spoken yet. I don't know what's happening in Cleveland. I don't know what's happening anywhere. The phones don't connect anymore. I wake up at 10 p.m. every night. My body's still on shift schedule. I lie in the dark in a guest bedroom and I listen. Not for threats, the fence is sound, the watches are posted. I listen for ringing, for the phantom buzz of an incoming call, for someone, somewhere, trying to reach a system that promised to answer. Sometimes I hear it, a faint tone at the edge of consciousness, and my hand reaches for a headset that isn't there, and my mouth forms the words, 911, what is your emergency? And then silence. The long silence that started at 3:47 and hasn't ended. The silence that will never end. Because I was the last voice of a system that died in real time. And I heard every breath of its dying. And I answered until there was no one left to answer. And then I drove away. I drove away. That's what I carry. Not the violence. Not the infected. Not even Paul Peterson's body on my bedroom floor. I carry the driving away. The moment I chose my family over my headset and left 70 people on hold in the dark. It was the right choice. I know that. It will never feel like the right choice.